Dinner Uncomplicated. Hey everyone, today I have a really interesting conversation with Claire Tansey. She's a chef, a writer, a teacher, and a former food director at Chatelaine. She's the author of Uncomplicated, Taking the Stress Out of Home Cooking, and her new book, which is called, or it's a cookbook, her new cookbook called Dinner Uncomplicated, Fixing a Delicious Meal Every Night of the Week. So it's 2020, and I'm pretty sure we are all very familiar or reacquainted with the art of cooking or lack of cooking. But 2020 has definitely brought us new awareness to the skills that maybe you have mastered or skills that we've realized we have lost along the way. Cooking is something that I was not brought up doing, and food has been such a healing mechanism for me. But it's also the art of food and the art of cooking and the art of connection and coming together. And even though, Claire is the author of a cookbook, today's conversation takes it to the dinner table. And we talk about reconnection as a family. We talk about the importance of coming together and what dinner actually represents. So hopefully this conversation reignites a spark for you, and also how we can uncomplicate this process. I think we have so much on our plates, and how we do one thing is how we do everything. And if we just start to make things simple and uncomplicate them, we find more alignment and ease in our lives. So let's dive in to today's conversation. All right. Welcome, Miss Claire.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
I'm excited for this conversation. Fellow Canadian, fellow book author with the same publisher, fellow mom, fellow lots of things. Did I say Canadian? I did.
Yay! Yay, Canada.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, we're going to dive into your new book, but I also want to dive into the deeper topic of food.
Great.
So for those that maybe don't know you, haven't heard of you previously, you just launched your second cookbook?
Yes, my second cookbook. My first cookbook came out 2 years ago in 2018, and it was called Uncomplicated, Taking the Stress Out of Home Cooking. So this is, I guess, the second one in a series. The new one is called Dinner Uncomplicated. And whereas the first book had a little bit of everything, some baking, some breakfast, some entertaining, this new book is wall-to-wall dinner, 90 new recipes, all for those easy weeknight dinners.
I love it. And it's out. So where can people get it?
Everywhere you buy books, including Costco, including Amazon, Indigo, Barnes & Noble, all the indies. And, if you come and knock on my door, I'll also sell you one.
Awesome. Where do you live? So just in case they want to come.
I live in Toronto, so it's a big town, so you have to just sort of sniff me out.
Okay. I was going to say, you don't want to tell everyone your address.
I know. Funny, eh? Yeah.
Okay. So the reason why I want to have this conversation with you is because you and I have chatted previously about food, and obviously the women that are listening to this are quote unquote busy, right? Mm-hmm. Full lives, raising families. And I personally believe we are in a cultural that glorifies busy, but with this disconnect. And you and I had a conversation, my own personal opinion about meal kits. And I feel like, we are as a culture so good at, obsession with productivity and obsession with, how can I get this done in less time, which is great, but also is creating a disconnect. And when people are craving connection, and they're craving to feel abundant, and they're craving to feel alive and energized, and yet convince themselves that they don't have time to eat, or they don't, they're so overwhelmed with the concept of being able to prepare dinner as a family. I think it's it's going against what we want and desire. And that's the conversation that I wanted to have today, because it seems so simple, and yet I think it's making a big impact in our culture of not creating the space to cook and to eat.
Oh, yeah. And it's a big, juicy subject, but one that is kind of the driving force behind my work. We see, exactly as you said, in our culture and in our society, we prioritize, particularly for our children, all sorts of activities, whether it's tutoring, piano lessons, sports, whatever it is. I mean, there are children's meditation classes and yoga classes, because we, of course, want the best for our kids, but it really doesn't have to be that hard or that expensive. Really, if you can find the time to put roughly half an hour, certainly less than an hour into, and I'm talking from preparation to eating and cleaning up, to have a family dinner ritual every single day, you will actually be giving yourself and your kids such a gift, the gift of connection, the gift of respecting yourself, your family members, and your body, the gift of respecting your finances, of your planet, of your mental health. And again, just respecting those family relationships. And that can all happen at the dinner table. You don't have to pay for expensive French lessons or Mandarin lessons or whatever it is. You don't have to buy fancy shoes. If you can find the time to get that home cooked dinner on the table, doesn't have to be complicated, and to sit together and really enjoy it, you are getting so much benefit.
Mm-hmm. I remember wanting this was obviously pre-COVID. I think COVID has shifted a lot of things for families around. I mean, they had to eat together more, right, during that time. But
Yes.
I also remember implementing like Sunday dinners and inviting at least one family or one friend, like a family over or a friend over, to eat with us on Sundays. And the conscious energy and effort it took for me to say, okay, who am I inviting? Right? Come on over. And then this back and forth of like, what do you want me to bring? I'm like, just show up, just show up. And then these people, like getting them to just be able to create the space to be like, we're not too busy. Oh, we're busy. This. And I'm like, listen, the door is open on Sunday. We eat at 5 p.m. If you can't be here, don't show up. Right? This is not rocket science. And so there's resistance from the other party. And then there's this back and forth of like not being able to receive, right?
Yes.
They can't receive the invitation and the offer. And then me also having like the mental dilemma of like, do I need to do this every week? And every single time I do it, I'm like, I'm so grateful we did that. No big deal. It's not a holiday dinner. It's like, this is what we were going to eat anyways. We just put a few extra chairs at the table. Come on in. Let's have really good conversation and then get the fuck out of my house.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things I say a lot is that it's not actually about the food a lot of the time. It doesn't matter. Like you said, it doesn't have to be a turkey dinner with 15 side dishes. It's about the connection. It's about gathering together and making space for those conversations. They don't have to be deep, meaningful conversations. You can just shoot in the breeze. You're sharing what happened to you this day, this week. And sure, now in post-COVID times, you're probably spending a lot of time with your family. I know personally, I'm absolutely so sick of the two people that I live with. That sometimes
out.
And our dinners are sometimes fairly quiet, but that doesn't even matter. We're there. We're making the space for that. And I've called it the anchor of my day. And it really is what grounds me, and what really brings all of us together in a day.
So were you always into food? Like, was that your thing?
I grew up in a family that loved to eat. typical at our family, you'd be eating a meal and either talking about a meal from the past or expecting a meal in the future. So everything we do is food. And it was one of those things that I never thought about it as a career because it was so much a part of my life that I couldn't imagine. I couldn't even separate it from who I was. So I sort of followed a path of academia. You know, I have a bachelor's degree in theater studies. I have a master's degree in literature studies. The whole time I was putting myself through university with restaurant jobs. And then it kind of dawned on me one day that I didn't actually want to stay in the academy. I had originally intended to do a PhD and become a professor and but that really was, I didn't have a great experience when I did my graduate work. And I thought, well, how can I get out of here? I still love using my brain, but I clearly love to cook. What could I do to possibly combine the two things? And I was sitting in a doctor's office reading Chatelaine magazine. I was living in Guelph, Ontario at the time, and I was reading Chatelaine, and I saw in there at the front of the book of the magazine that they had a test kitchen. And I thought, oh, that's it. The light bulb truly came on over my head. So I moved to Toronto and tried to get a job in a test kitchen because I thought that's the perfect combination of cooking, but science and research and writing and educating and teaching all wrapped into one. So yeah, I moved to Toronto.
What is a test kitchen? Like you're testing food?
Yeah, you're actually developing recipes. So if you think of your typical magazine, you know, it's got a whole section of recipes at the back. And in a women's magazine and women's service magazine like Chatelaine, we were doing about 50 recipes a month. So those are all new recipes that we have come up with. And when I was at Chatelaine, I had 10 people on my team, all recipe developers and recipe testers. We had a beautiful test kitchen. It looks like a home kitchen, but like times 5 with 5 different stations and 6 fridges. And we would develop the recipes and then test them. And that just means that different people are just cooking the recipes and making sure that the instructions work and that they're clear and that every little detail that we can build into the recipe to make it work as well for you at home as it does for us. Make sure we build that all in there.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's a job of eating constantly. When I left that job, I'd be like, oh my gosh, it's 9:30. Why haven't I had 3 things to eat already today? So it's you're constantly eating, constantly tasting. But then again, a lot of writing, a lot of research, and a lot of collaboration with other cooks. Really, really fun job.
Interesting. And then what happened after that?
So that was 2010. I got that job after having been a freelance everything. The restaurant critic, a culinary teacher, everything in between. And I left Chatelaine to start my own business. So I started in 2016, started Claire Tansey's Kitchen, my little spot here, because I wanted to be my own boss. I did some career work and personal deep introspection and came to understand that I wanted to be my own boss. So I started my own business doing recipe development and teaching. And then I do media stuff. So I have a regular spot on TV and on radio. And I started writing cookbooks. And here we are.
And here we are. So where have you been testing everything that was in your cookbook or that is in your cookbook? Was that just you? You didn't have, or did you have a big fancy test kitchen?
No, I didn't have a big fancy test kitchen. I had a humongous, enormous, very cheap test kitchen. So I developed my own recipes at home. I have my own, I have a crummy old electric oven. I have regular equipment. It's just truly a home kitchen. I shop at a terrible little local grocery store that's usually out of most things. And that's all really important to me because I don't want to be sending people to gourmet stores. I don't want to be asking people to buy expensive equipment to make my recipes. Mm-hmm. But once my recipes were good for me, once they worked for me, I have a huge, huge group of people who are non-professional home cooks who agreed to test the recipes for me to make sure that they worked as well for them in their kitchens as they do in mine. It's a humbling experience. Sending 90 recipes out to be tested by hundreds of people, but I learned so much, and the result is that the recipes that are in the book have really been proven to work. And the time they take, if I say a recipe takes 15 minutes, I don't want people saying, oh, sure, it takes 15 minutes for you, Claire, you're a professional.
Right.
I really want it to take 15 minutes for you, Heather, and for everybody, because it's not fair otherwise, right? And I joke that the worst thing that could happen for me is for readers to be pissed off with me, to be annoyed, because I've lied to them, or I've made them go to 6 different stores to buy something, or I've made them use 2 tablespoons of a condiment that's now going to, the rest of the jar is going to fester at the back of their fridge. So I don't want you to be annoyed with me, and I go to great lengths to make sure that doesn't happen.
I love that. And because I have the book, we've tested it out and played here, and it's so beautifully laid out. I do not identify, well, my husband would tell you, I do not identify as a cook. I grew up kind of the opposite of you, where family dinners did not happen a lot. And we did not talk about food. We barely had enough food. And so cooking to me used to feel really overwhelming. Like ingredients, and it was like how to put these together. And now I've definitely developed more like creativity around it. But what I love about your book is, the simplicity of it. It's like, here's one page, and here's the pretty picture of probably how it's not going to turn out, but how it's supposed to look. The resemblance of like, are these the same ingredients? And that's what I love about it. I just show my boys, I'm like, what do you want to eat? I'm so curious, obviously testing, what have you noticed? And it could be with your testers, it could be with the people who have experienced, your cookbook. What do you notice with the modern woman today? Like, it's not about the food. It's not about the recipe. What's really going on when people say, I don't have time to cook?
It can mean a bunch of things when I hear that. At its worst, to me at least, at its worst, I hear that as, I don't value cooking enough to make it a priority in my life. And so that's when I go back to that place that we started at, which is that cooking and nourishing yourself and your family has such extraordinary benefits for such a simple act, that the fact that you could potentially, go to a yoga class, or, stay an extra 2 hours at work or something, I think that making dinner easily beats anything in terms of benefit. So when people tell me they don't have time to cook, I worry that that's what it is, that I don't value cooking enough, or that I don't want to be perceived as somebody who stays at home and can cook for her family, because I am a professional, successful woman, and somebody else can do the cooking for me. And so I know why we're there. I know why women often feel that way. And I want to flip that narrative right on its head and say, because this is who I am. I am a mom. I run my own business. I am extremely busy. And yet I recognize that if I can sit together with my husband and my son pretty much every single day, I am going to get benefits from here to next week. Now, people also don't have time, right? People also are quite busy. People working at home seem to be working even harder. It's that much harder to separate from your office when it's in your guest bedroom. And I would say that then it's even more important to kind of shut that laptop down. For me, it's always taking off my glasses. That's a big part. Sometimes I take off my bra as well. That's a good transitional piece.
The bra's not on. I'm not working.
That's right.
It's over with. It's over.
You really don't want to get on a Zoom call when you got no bra on.
Yeah. Neck up.
And then the other piece is that there is this really pernicious sense in our society and in our culture that cooking is difficult. And that is, we learn that through glorious Instagram photographs, through Food Network television, through all these endless competition shows about cooking. My God, cooking is not a competition. As a species, we've been cooking for ourselves for thousands of generations. We are the product of successful cooks. And so don't believe the hype that Gordon Ramsay's going to yell at you if your food doesn't turn out right. That is total horseshit. And believe in yourself, trust in yourself that you are capable of cooking something for your family that will nourish them and will nourish you.
I have a friend who owns a local cafe and eatery. There's food, and she is, I think she's European. She's from, and she's a fabulous cook. And she's like, nobody ever invites me over for dinner.
It's
and
the
I'm
same.
Like,
I have the same problem.
And I'm like, do you know how intimidating that is? And I was like, if I cook something, you cannot give me feedback. And she's like, okay. She goes, it's just at this point, I will eat anything. Will somebody please invite me over? And I get it. You're the expert, and it's like, it's vulnerable.
I will also say, I will back up your friend and say, you could serve me canned beans and I will be delighted. Truly, we get so few dinner invitations. The only people who invite me over for dinner are retired chefs.
Yeah. Well, people do that with me with parenting. Like,
right?
they're terrified. They're like, I'm not bringing my kids over to your house. That's like, right. You're going to judge me. And I'm not, because we all have our own, I don't even want to call them imperfections. Like, it's what makes us human.
Yeah,
we have our strengths, and then we have our not so strengths. And it's muscles, right? These are all muscles that we have to develop, and habits. The first few times I made things, they burnt or they taste like shit. But if you keep trying again and again and again, it gets better and better. And that's where we get the feedback. But the interesting concept for me, like when I step back and think about it, is we have to eat every day.
Yep.
And it's not something like you could actually not work every day and still survive. You probably would survive a lot longer if you took a day or two off. But there's this weird concept that I don't have time to eat, which is a basic human need. And our priorities are all mixed up. I don't have time to eat. I don't have time to sleep. I don't have time to work out or move my body. And when we're saying, like you were mentioning, I don't have time, I can't, you're cutting yourself off to possibility. And I love this aspect of creativity. And I know the mental energy that it takes to say, I'm going to try, right? I'm going to try. I'm just visioning. I always tell people or ask people, like, how do you want to feel? And they know how they want to feel, but sometimes they don't know what they need to get there. And we don't know because we haven't experienced it, but I could just visualize myself in my kitchen. It's, it might be a little messy, but it's messy with love, and have some like incense or a diffuser going, some music playing. And I might have headphones on, who knows, depending on the volume of the children. And I'm just making something out of your cookbook and trying, right? And with no expectation to actually feed it to anybody except for myself and maybe my husband, because I'm not open to their feedback. I'm not open to the children saying, I'm not going to eat this. And I remember going to a friend's house in high school, and her parents would cook together on Friday nights, like after dinner. And that was like their thing. And they would try to recreate meals that they ate at a restaurant. And they would always give it to us and be like, taste this. And we were like, this tastes like shit. And they're like, oh, let's try this and that. And that was like an activity that they did together, even though the kids were around. It was like a date night for them. There's so much creativity and joy it can bring if you choose it.
It's very much my partner's creativity, his creative outlet. In fact, it's something it used to really annoy me, because like on Tuesday afternoon, he would say, hey, what do you want to have for dinner on Saturday night? What should we cook? He loves to cook. And I'd be like, oh my God, I don't know. It's only Tuesday. Like, give me a break. And then the penny finally dropped for me, and I realized that, he's working at a call center. He needs his creativity. He needs to have that chance to really express himself and try new things and just break out a little bit. And so now I just have come to accept it. And so now on the Tuesday when he says, "Hey, what do you want for dinner on Saturday?" What do you want to have for dinner on Saturday?
You're like, you're asking because you know.
That's right. And I'm grateful for you. If you're going to cook it and think it up and shop for it, fantastic. And I will sit down and enjoy it, or we do cook together occasionally. And so it is something that we both love. And I don't actually think I could spend my life with somebody who didn't value food in the same way that I do, because obviously it's my work, but it is also my joy. And it would be hard for me to live with somebody who didn't feel the same way.
So I was just going to ask you if he's always been like that, but you kind of answered that question.
It's great when I met, whenever I talk to my partners, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, it's always about dinner and food. So it's a great easy topic for us to share.
Interesting. My husband I would say he cooks more than I do. But he also, when people will be like, "Oh, well, you're lucky, right? You're lucky." And in all honesty, I think it's just one of those things that he wasn't always that way. It was just, we, shift, like things just change, right? You're like, you're doing more of this, I'm doing more of this. And you get into a routine and you're kind of losing it. And I feel like when we're stuck in a space and we're like, "Oh, they won't," or "I can't," just leaning into, you know what, maybe I'm going to take over one night a week from a creative aspect, or maybe I'll do it on the weekend when I'm not working, or whatever day you're not working, and make it like fun and creative. And, I've looked through your book. There's so many easy recipes that take barely any time. I mean, how much easier can it get? You can go online, click the ingredients, they will come to your doorstep. You open a book, there's a picture of it, and step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like it cannot get any easier than that.
Well, that's the idea, because it really doesn't have to be difficult to be delicious. There is no law that says if dinner isn't going to be amazing and memorable and beneficial and a place of connection if it's not 3 courses, or if it didn't take you an hour and a half and blood, sweat, and tears to make it. A grilled cheese sandwich and a bowl of soup has the same amazing impact as a beef Wellington and whatever.
Yeah, and a quick flip through. I know we kind of prepare our dinners, like when we're doing, I'll take an hour. I mean, I'm down to an hour. I'm not spending all day Sunday preparing for the following week, but I'm always looking for how can we make the week flow better, and a simple, okay, we have to eat Monday through Friday. What is the most chaotic time of day? Dinner, typically. So, that's the time when you want to create connection. Okay, what are we going to eat Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? Great. Do we have those ingredients? Great. Okay, now we know what we're making. Not that big of an issue.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the pieces I wanted to address in the book is that organizational piece, that meal planning piece. I hate meal planning. I've tried it before. It doesn't stick for me. I feel restricted. I feel like my creativity is crushed. And also my life changes, especially in working times, a little less so now, but my life changes on a day-to-day basis in terms of what I've got in the kitchen, what I'm working on, where I'm going in the evening. So I really wanted to address the benefit that you can get from putting some kind of plan in place, even if it feels restrictive. So I did a ton of research into different ways of meal planning, and you've addressed exactly the core concept of it, is that if you can take some time, it can be 20 minutes at the beginning of the week, to just get some ideas down, then you can eliminate so much of that sort of low volume stress that you feel every day thinking about, oh, okay, what's for dinner? Oh, we're going to have to eat tonight. Oh, what am I going to make? So if you can just scratch down some ideas on a piece of paper or a whiteboard or in your computer, then that will eliminate so much of that daily stress. I know it happens to me, at 10 o'clock in the morning, I'll think, oh, what's for dinner? Oh, I don't know. I don't have anything in the house. My kid's not going to eat this or that. How much time do I have? All that stuff. So if you can get that little plan in place, and like I said, I've figured out 5 different frameworks for people who hate meal planning, 5 different ways that you can do that. It really does help. And then when you've eliminated that low level stress, that means you're even more capable of enjoying it and enjoying the time that you're spending cooking.
Yeah. And you don't, if you prioritize, it will become a priority for you.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no magic here. If, shifting dinner time in your home, be feeling more empowered around food is not a priority for you, it will not be a priority for you.
Mm-hmm.
And, I tell people that all the time. You can say you want change, but if you're not doing anything to change, it's not going to change. So like just looking, you're like, okay, I took this 20 minutes and it saved me hours, like of the mental drain and drama that you pursue in your mind and then around your family. I mean, you could save relationships if you freaking figure out what you're having for dinner.
Kind of. Making dinner can kind of save your life in some ways. Like it really can. And that the book is full of, and my online courses as well, just full of these tips and tricks and strategies to overcome all of those roadblocks that we all feel in between now and making dinner. Oh, I can't because X, Y, Z. Like let's put some stuff in place that will allow you to overcome those roadblocks. Yeah, you will still need to cook dinner. That is not the silver. Well, I can't offer you that silver bullet. I can't come over and cook for you every night. I certainly can't do it every night. You still do need to cook, but let's give you every single tool possible to make that as easy and as enjoyable as possible.
Yeah. And as you kind of brought up at the beginning of this conversation, is that you grew up around food, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I always say becoming the person that you most desire your children to be. And it's not about being perfect, but it's, I just see food as fuel and food as medicine now. And culturally, I still don't think we accept that. But if you start to see it as fuel and medicine, so will your children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So where can people find you, Claire, and what do you have coming up? I know you have your online program.
Yeah, so the book is available everywhere, and you can find out all sorts of details about me at clairetansey.com. And yeah, my online program, which is an 8-week course called Fixing Dinner, which actually gives you the foundations, teaches you, we go step by step through the foundations of getting that dinner plan easier. We're going to open the membership up for that again at the end of October. It's only open for a small portion of time. So we're going to run that again. And then that's the big thing that's coming up next for me, just getting this book out to people, teaching a bunch of workshops virtually, of course, and getting my course up and going again.
Love that. How is it teaching virtually versus in person?
It's very different. I actually craft my virtual classes very differently from how I teach when I'm face-to-face. So I spent many years teaching at a culinary college where every student has their own, oven and stove, and they are chopping their own garlic and, deboning their own chicken. And so I'm literally standing there next to them, helping them and showing them how to hold their knives, and then seasoning things together. Me taste it, you taste it. So when I teach cooking virtually, it's a very different content. And instead of me saying, okay, this is how you chop an onion, although we can talk about that, we talk about, let's figure out how to make space in your life for dinner, and let's figure out what your particular roadblocks are and how we can overcome that. Oh, it's picky eaters. Oh, let's talk about that. Let's give you some strategies. And this is what's always worked for me and for my students. Sure, we can talk about chopping an onion, we can talk about recipes, but I think it's more valuable for me to teach you more like a recipe formula. So take this protein plus this vegetable and add this sauce, and then you can swap out all these proteins and vegetables. So more like a formula as opposed to a specific recipe. It's that old adage about giving a man a fish versus teaching him to fish.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to show you how to be a confident and capable cook as opposed to just teaching you a few recipes.
I love that. I see that in so many aspects of my life where you create these unconscious or subconscious codependencies.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, I don't know what that recipe is, rather than like trusting yourself and just going with the flow and being like, fingers crossed, is that edible?
It is. I'll never forget it. One time a friend of mine said she wanted to make a spinach salad for dinner, but she couldn't because she didn't have any bacon. And I said, well, you can still make a spinach salad even though you don't have bacon. But she couldn't really think of that. Like for her, a spinach salad had to have bacon in it. So I want to take that away so that you can feel like you can still make that spinach salad. Bacon's delicious, but you can still make it delicious even if you don't have bacon.
Exactly. I'm really hungry now.
Yeah, well, welcome to my life. I'm always hungry.
Do you get really hungry when you talk about food all the time?
I do. If I'm writing recipes or if I'm working on recipes, I'm snacking constantly because I'm just always hungry. Especially when you're coming up with adjectives like, oh, let's call this juicy herbed turkey burgers, or let's call it, scallion, be good in this. Oh, ginger would be good in this. I'm like, oh yeah, what else would be good right now? Some peanut butter and crackers right now. That's
oh my gosh.
So
I am legit so hungry and I just ate. So Claire, thank you so much for this conversation. So everyone can go find you. Claire, you said clairetansey.com, correct?
That's right.
All right. And go get your book, which is called
Dinner Uncomplicated. You'll notice it. It's got a beautiful blue cover. You'll see it a mile away.
It is amazing.